My name is Marissa Jean Whitfield, and until February 11, 2025, I believed my life was a carefully balanced masterpiece. I was 47 years old, living in a high-rise condo on the banks of the Chattahoochee River in Atlanta, surrounded by designer furniture, gifted handbags, and the hum of ring lights. My days revolved around brand collaborations, travel shoots, and meticulously planned TikTok uploads. To my audience, I was the embodiment of effortless style and confidence. In truth, I hadn't stopped to think deeply about anything eternal in years. I was born in 1978 in Savannah, Georgia, in a weathered Victorian home that creaked when the wind rolled in from the river. My father was a retired Navy officer turned history teacher, and my mother ran an alterations shop out of our front parlor. My earliest memories are a patchwork of Sunday mornings in a white-steepled Methodist church, sunlight pouring through stained glass in reds and blues, and the sound of my mother's sewing machine late into the night. Faith was present, but quiet, like a hymn you hum without thinking about the words. As a child, I was drawn to beauty in all its forms. I would sketch dresses beside my mother, then take a Polaroid camera outside to capture the way the evening light bent through Spanish moss. That hunger for the aesthetic never left me. After college, I moved to Atlanta and worked in marketing, slipping gradually into the role of influencer. By my mid-30s, I had built a loyal following on Instagram, which exploded when I embraced TikTok's short, snappy storytelling. I told myself I was helping people, showing them how to be confident and embrace their best selves. I never thought about the younger eyes watching, absorbing more than I intended. Social media, to me, was just a digital runway. When the invitation came to host a luxury fashion livestream in Dubai, I didn't hesitate. The set was a glass-bottom platform suspended between two skyscrapers, the desert stretching out in gold and rose beneath us. I remember feeling invincible, right up until the wind changed. The sandstorm hit suddenly, hurling grit and debris through the air. A massive advertising drone, overloaded with banners, spun out of control and crashed into the rigging. The glass beneath my feet fractured. I dropped 40 stories before slamming into an LED display platform. The city lights faded, and I was falling again, but this time, into somewhere no runway could reach. The sensation of falling didn't end with the impact in Dubai. It kept going, as if gravity had been given permission to claim me entirely. The air thickened into something syrupy, and the colors bled away until there was only a dim, pulsing red glow far below. My ears filled with a low, bass-heavy thrum, the kind of vibration you feel in your chest at a concert, except here it rattled my bones and made my teeth ache. When I finally landed, it wasn't on solid ground. It was a shifting surface of slick, black tiles that reflected distorted versions of myself. My reflection's eyes were too wide, too hungry, and her smile was stretched into something predatory. Behind her, in the warped glass, I saw other faces, young, beautiful, and vacant, their mouths moving in a silent chant I couldn't understand. The air smelled of burnt plastic and sweet perfume, an intoxicating mix that made my head swim. Towering screens rose around me in a perfect circle, each one looping endless, glittering videos. Bright filters smoothed every imperfection, sped-up songs played backward, and overlaid text flashed in languages I didn't speak but somehow understood. You're not enough. Buy this. Follow me. The captions dripped into my mind like poison, bypassing thought and burrowing straight into desire. And then I saw them. The children. Hundreds of them, sitting cross-legged on the tile, faces bathed in the cold light of the screens. Some couldn't have been older than 6. They were swiping endlessly, their eyes glassy, skin pale as if the light had replaced their blood. The more they scrolled, the more transparent they became, until only outlines were left, fragile silhouettes tethered to the screens by thin, shimmering cords. Out of the shadows stepped figures in extravagant costumes, each dressed like an exaggerated parody of social media stars. Their faces were painted into permanent expressions of delight, but their eyes were dead. They moved among the children, draping them in sequin chains, placing jeweled crowns on their heads, and whispering promises that made the cords tighten and glow. I realized these were the architects of this place, influencers who had traded their souls to keep their influence forever, now enslaving the next generation in the same trap. One of them turned toward me, and my stomach lurched. It was a man I had once mentored, a boy I had taught how to negotiate brand deals. His smile was mechanical, his hands twitching as if still rehearsing dance moves. "Look," he said, pointing to the smallest child in the circle, "she'll never know she's in chains." The walls pulsed, and I realized the screens weren't screens at all. They were living, breathing flesh stretched tight and thin, each movement sending ripples of light and distortion across the surface. The glow I'd thought was electric was something far more organic and hungry. That was when the ground began to tilt, sliding me toward the center, where a yawning black chasm pulsed with light. And from deep within, I heard the faintest echo of my own voice, recorded and looped into an endless advertisement. My words, my influence, had followed me here. I tried to turn away from the chasm, but the floor beneath me shifted like a conveyor belt, pushing me toward it. The voices from the walls grew louder, the distorted advertisements now stitched with familiar phrases, my own taglines, my own scripts. It was like being surrendered by 1,000 versions of myself, all selling, smiling, convincing. The realization hit me like cold iron in the chest. These weren't just echoes. They were the digital imprints of my life, the residue of every post, every campaign, every carefully crafted piece of content I'd pushed into the world. A shape emerged from the shadows ahead, a woman draped in fabric that shimmered between silk and static, her features constantly shifting, morphing into faces I recognized from the industry. One moment she looked like a beauty guru I'd once envied. The next she wore the face of a teen influencer I'd collaborated with. She stopped changing when she settled into something eerily close to my own reflection, except her eyes were black pools without depth. "Marissa," she purred, her voice a perfect blend of flattery and accusation. "Do you know how many millions saw themselves in you? How many followed where you led?" I opened my mouth to answer, but no sound came out. She didn't wait. "They believed you were showing them joy. But what you really gave them was hunger." The words dug into me like claws. I wanted to deny it, to say I had only wanted to inspire, to uplift, but then the chasm pulsed, and I saw flashes of my content played back in grotesque detail. A lipstick review leered over the hollow eyes of a teenage girl scrolling at 3 a.m. A cheerful unboxing filmed while a boy sat in the dark corner of his bedroom, comparing his cheap sneakers to the ones I'd shown. Every like, every share was a drop into the ocean of longing, and the ocean had swallowed them whole. From the other side of the chasm came a sound, not a scream, but the echo of millions of fingers tapping on screens in unison. And then they rose. Figures climbed up from the darkness, pulling themselves over the edge with jerking, puppet-like motions. They were the children again, but not as I'd seen them before. Now their faces were gaunt, their skin cracked with lines of glowing code. Their eyes were wide, but inside them was nothing, not even recognition. They reached for me, not to attack, but to hold. Cold hands wrapped around my wrists and forearms, and I felt something flow out of me, a steady siphoning of light from deep within. Each touch pulled another piece of me away, and in its place came a crushing weight of guilt. "Do you feel it?" the shifting woman asked, now circling me like a predator. "This is the debt you've accrued. Every moment you distracted them from truth. Every seed of envy. Every time you told them their worth was tied to the image you sold." The children's grip tightened, and the cords that tethered them to the glowing walls began to snake around my arms and throat. I could hear whispers inside the cords, my own captions, my hashtags, all repeated back to me in mocking tones. I fell to my knees. The conveyor motion of the floor didn't stop, and the edge of the chasm loomed closer. Below, I saw no fire, no demons, only an endless ocean of shimmering glass shards, each one reflecting the face of someone I had influenced. Some smiled, some cried, but all of them were watching me, as if waiting for me to fall among them. The shifting woman knelt beside me, her smile almost tender now. "You were never their savior. You were their mirror. And the mirror belongs here." The cords constricted, pulling me forward. My fingernails scraped the slick floor, leaving no mark. The children's faces were inches from mine now, each one whispering a different memory from my life. The time I photoshopped a waistline, the sponsored trip I didn't disclose, the trend I jumped on without knowing it was harmful. Every compromise, every rationalization played in my ears like a confession I couldn't stop making. Something inside me broke. I stopped pulling back, stopped fighting the cords. There was a perverse relief in the idea of sinking into that ocean of faces, to be done with the weight of my influence, to disappear into the very thing I had built. The shifting woman leaned close, her voice almost kind. "You see, Marissa, this isn't punishment. This is placement. You fit here. And once you join, you will finally understand the algorithm's true purpose." The chasm's light swelled, and I felt the pull intensify. My body slid closer to the edge until the tips of my fingers dangled into the abyss. The glass shards below shimmered like an invitation, each one humming with the echo of my old life. For the first time since falling into this place, I believed there was no way out. No redemption. No reason to resist. And that was when the light changed. The light that pierced the chasm was not the cold glow of the glass shards. It was warm, living, and it cut through the cords around my arms like they were made of smoke. The children's hands fell away, their forms flickering and dissolving into the air. The conveyor belt beneath me halted. I lifted my head, and there he was. Not in some distant, untouchable place, but standing on the very edge of the chasm between me and the abyss. His robe was radiant but not blinding, woven with light that seemed to move like waves over its surface. His eyes, those eyes, looked into me with a depth that saw every hidden thing but did not recall. "Marissa." His voice was both thunder and whisper, a sound that filled the cavern yet settled in my chest, steadying my breath. "You were never made to feed the hunger of the world. You were made to lead them to me." The shifting woman hissed, retreating toward the shadows. "She's already given herself to the machine. She belongs here." But Jesus didn't even look at her. His gaze never left mine. "You thought your work was harmless, but you became part of a snare, a net cast wide across the minds of the young. You didn't build the trap, but you decorated it. You made it beautiful enough for them to walk in willingly." His words cut deep, but unlike the cords, they didn't strangle, they freed. Memories of my harmless choices, my compromises, rose up like stains in water, and I wanted to hide from him. But I couldn't look away. Why show me this? My voice cracked. Because, he said, reaching his hand toward me, I have given you time yet. And when you leave this place, you will speak. You will warn them. Not with fear only, but with truth. The kind that sets free. I glanced at the abyss one last time. The shards had gone dark, the faces fading like smoke. The children were gone. Only the sound of my own breathing remained. Come, he said. When his hand touched mine, it was like every nerve in my body woke at once. The darkness shattered, the chasm closed, and we stood in a place so filled with light it had no source, because he was the source. I could feel his love not as a concept but as a force, stronger than gravity, pulling me whole. And in that love was a mission. I understood in an instant what he meant. My voice, my reach, my platforms, they had to become weapons of truth, not tools of distraction. And every second I had left on earth would matter. Then, like the tide receding, the light began to draw back. His hand lingered in mine just long enough for him to say one more thing. Protect the children, Marissa. For whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for them to have a millstone tied around their neck and be drowned in the depths of the sea. The verse hit me like a seal on my soul. And then the light was gone. I woke to the sterile sting of antiseptic and the rhythmic beep of a heart monitor. My chest felt crushed, every breath a battle, but my mind was on fire. The memory of his voice, steady, unshakable, echoed in me. Protect the children. The words were not a suggestion. They were a commission. Yet the conflict began almost instantly. My old life waited in the corner of my mind like an open suitcase. Sponsorship contracts, curated images, smiling brand representatives. If I spoke about what I'd seen, if I named the trap, I would lose it all, maybe even face ridicule and lawsuits. But then I saw their faces again, the children on the conveyor, their eyes wide with hunger that could never be filled. And I knew I could not unsee it. Faith was no longer a quiet background. It had become the ground I stood on. My old life was gone. There was no going back. The first night home from the hospital, I sat on my balcony overlooking the Chattahoochee. The city lights blinked like indifferent stars, but my thoughts were still in that other place, the realm where souls were stripped of their disguises. I couldn't just go back to content creation like nothing happened. The commission burned in me. Protect the children. I began by severing ties. Every brand deal that used TikTok or similar platforms as their main driver was gone from my inbox within days. My agent thought I'd lost my mind. Some friends stopped calling. But the silence created space for something new. I started researching, following the trail from harmless-seeming trends to the darker currents beneath, algorithmic targeting of young users, suggestive challenges masked as fun, and hidden sponsorships pushing substances and mindsets designed to erode innocence. Then came the messages. I didn't expect them. Parents, teachers, even other influencers, quietly reaching out after I'd hinted online about my wake-up call. They told me about kids losing themselves to screens, about secret accounts filled with toxic content, about how impossible it felt to pull them back. Each story was another confirmation that what I'd seen wasn't symbolic. It was happening right now. I decided to speak plainly. No more coded posts. I launched a series called Behind the Filter, breaking down how certain trends were engineered, who was funding them, and why. Some episodes went viral for the wrong reasons. Trolls and smear campaigns came fast. But alongside the mockery, something else happened. People started waking up. Parents shared my videos at PTA meetings. Youth pastors messaged me about sermons they built from my warnings. In prayer, I kept asking God if this was enough. The answer, always gentle but firm, was that this was only the start. The trap was wider than one app or one generation. It was about reclaiming territory the enemy had claimed in hearts and minds. My work was to shine a light into every shadowed place, no matter how uncomfortable. And so, the mission expanded. I began organizing workshops, speaking at churches, meeting with small community groups. I wasn't just talking about the dangers. I was equipping people to fight back. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't viral. But it was real. And every time I saw a parent lock eyes with their child and speak life into them instead of handing them a glowing screen, I felt the fire inside me steady. There would be no more filters, no more pretending. I had seen what waited in the depths, and I had met the one who pulled me out. Now my days would be spent making sure fewer souls were dragged there in the first place. I am not the same woman who fell through that glass in Dubai. The hashtags, the follow accounts, the polished filters, they mean nothing now. I have stood where the veil is ripped away, where every soul stands bare before truth, and I have heard the voice of Jesus thunder with both mercy and warning. That reality burns brighter in me than any spotlight ever could. Today my life is quieter but infinitely fuller. My mornings begin in Scripture. My evenings end in prayer for the generations coming up behind us. I still hold a camera, but now it's a tool for truth, not vanity. I walk into schools, churches, and living rooms with the same message. The trap is real, but so is deliverance. Every step forward is an answer to the commission I was given. Protect the children. Shine the light. Live ready. And when my time truly comes, I pray I'll be found faithful.